Hey, folks, welcome to this week's episode of What's Bruin here on 6342 Productions. I'm your host, Chris Nozick, joined as I am every episode of What's Bruin with my co-host, the one, the only, the artist formerly known as Dom Tiano. Dom, it feels like it's been forever, but it's only been a week. How you been, my friend?
Good. I'm on vacation. Have been since Friday at 3 p.m. and it hasn't stopped raining since then.
I was going to say, I had to ask you, that picture that you sent out on X earlier, was that you driving?
Yes.
Wow. How much rain have you guys got up there?
Just this afternoon, 30 millimeters, which is an inch and a half.
Wow. Where's it all going?
But we had that all this morning too. Wow. And we're supposed to get it again tonight. So, we were at the cottage for a week, and I thought, well, 4 days and it hasn't stopped raining. I'm going home.
Right.
So, because I was told you'd have bacon and eggs for us tonight, and I got no bacon and eggs.
Well, you know who might have them? We got our
Kevin
boy Kevin is jumping in. The boys are back in town. And Kevin, this time my computer's working, so I am on time. Love it. So, not a lot has happened, although today's been a little busy. The last couple of days have been a little bit busy with some more RFA signings for our Boston Bruins. We can start there. You put out a great article, Dom.Hockey, for anyone who hasn't seen it, earlier today about asking the question whether or not the Bruins could potentially carry 3 goaltenders to start the season. So I want to dive into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's obviously a lot of talk about the potential lineup, what we could be looking at, and kind of how that's affected by some of the battles that we might see heading into camp. So I'm going to toss it to you, Dom. Where do you want to start this week?
Well, we can start quickly with the Mark McLaughlin signing today. 1 year contract, 2-way, meaning he'll probably make about $90,000 in the American Hockey League, $775 in the NHL. He was the last remaining RFA to sign other than Jeremy Swayman. So I guess Sweeney's work is done other than Swayman.
Now, so here's my question. Mark McLaughlin obviously came up a couple years ago towards the end of the season. Fans absolutely loved him, and he played well. I'm not trying to discount his game, what he brought, or anything like that. But then he spent all of last season down in Providence. I don't think he played a single game last year with the big club. So as an RFA now, is he just viewed as depth? Do you think they're just trying to kind of develop more to his game? Does he have a shot at making the roster out of camp? What are your thoughts on where he stands with the organization? And Kevin says, I will always like a Mark McLaughlin signing.
Yeah, I don't see any possibility, or I should say very slim, that he could make the roster out of camp. Just don't see it.
So I know over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about some of the depth. And now, granted, obviously, a lot of that was based around development camp and guys who are still 2, 3, 4 years away, the Yelviks of the world, the Lochmelises of the world, not necessarily having a spot in the center lineup down the middle, available, because now you're going 4 or 5 deep. Mark McLaughlin obviously originally came up, was a center. He has the ability to kick over to the right side. Do you think there might be a shot for him to be in the organization as a right winger in the future? Or is this something where they're just trying to rebuild a little bit more value to potentially trade him, or kind of do right by the player, as they say, build him up a little bit so he can get a chance somewhere else and maybe catch on and stick in the NHL with another organization?
Oh, I think that he has a shot in the future. When you look at the right side, Geeky, Kostelik, and Brazeau are all free agents at the end of next season. So I'm not going to say he doesn't have a shot. He does. But I don't see him beating anybody out of the lineup this season.
Which I agree. I think he ends up in Providence. I don't think it's that hard to put him down there and get him through waivers. I mean, someone's really going to have to like him. We'll talk a little bit more about the waiver process in a little while when we get to the goaltending situation.
I don't think he needs waivers, though.
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to check.
No, McLaughlin doesn't. He doesn't need waivers.
Okay, well, that's helpful. Which last year, I remember you made a good point throughout the season based off of players who required waivers, didn't require waivers. This year, right now, you're really looking at Mason Lohrei, Matthew Poitras, and potentially Fabian Lysell or Georgi Merkulov as the options who don't require waivers. Am I missing anybody?
Nope, you've got it pretty much.
So,
unless somebody below them comes up and wins a spot, but I don't see that. Like Riley Duran, Trevor Kuntar, those types.
Right. Now, also, since the last time we were on the air, Alec Regula and Michael Callahan both signed their RFA contracts. Again, just depth pieces on the defense. Obviously, I would expect them to be in Providence. But are you thrilled that those guys are back? Kind of what are your thoughts? I'm glad they're trying to keep some of the depth around because Regula had a good year last year, and Callahan has shown a little something down in Providence. I'm glad we're not just jumping to a Jackson Edward if we have an injury on the blue line.
Well, they need the depth. Not only that, like people have to remember they don't have just an NHL squad to ice. They have to ice an AHL squad. Right. And if you take Regula out and you take Callahan out, you haven't got much experience there in Providence. Not much at all. So let's forget this notion that it's the NHL or bust. No, they have to ice an AHL roster as well. And that's part of the process of running an NHL team.
Right. And not everyone's going to be because it's like not everyone's going to be the guy that's immediately called up. But
not everyone there is going to be an NHL player.
Right. And like Mark McLaughlin may never make it back to the NHL. He might not, but that doesn't mean he won't be a great AHL player who can help bring guys along up to the next level because he did get a small sample size up there. He does know how hard it is to fight to get back up there. And for many more years, he will be trying to make that jump himself. That's not a bad person to keep in your system. And then once you establish this is his baseline, if what he offers you is better than the unknown, he's going to get his shot again.
Yeah. So that's why they go out and they sign the Mason Millmans or the Evan Beerlings or, don't offer Joey Abadi an NHL contract and just keep him on his American Hockey League deal. You go through the 28 players that are currently probably pegged for Providence. You might have 6 that'll play in the NHL.
Right. So we also got Matrix jumping in. Howdy to you as well.
Hi, Matrix.
I want a sandwich is asking what's the two-way deal in Providence specifying money-wise?
Yeah, the confusion with two-way deals is people think it has to do with waivers. It doesn't. Two-way has nothing to do with waivers or anything other than the salary paid at the NHL level versus the American Hockey League level. So in Mark McLaughlin's case, he will make $775,000 in the NHL. He will make, I believe it's $90,000 in the American Hockey League. That's what it's. If it was a one-way deal, he would make $775,000 no matter where he's playing.
There we go. I was going to say that I think is the clarification with the two-way contract. It basically means 2 salaries based on one when you're up here and one where you're down here. So
Now, there's also two-way American Hockey League deals. So they would be paid one salary in the AHL and a different salary in the ECHL. And the reason for that is there's no salary cap in the American Hockey League, but there's a salary cap in the ECHL.
and for those who are wondering, the ECHL Bruins affiliate would be the Maine Mariners.
Correct.
So, and that's where we saw a lot of Reed Dick playing the last couple, or was it last year mostly?
Kyle Kaiser.
Kyle Kaiser as well, who good for him getting a longer term deal going overseas. Hopefully that works out well for him. It does put a little damper to our goaltending depth, but he was also what, fifth or sixth in line to see the net. So, understandable move here. Kevin also adding what people should like about this signing is that Mark is a professional. He has been a mentor for young prospects going through the system. One in particular is Matt Poitras. He learned from Mark. So exactly kind of building off of what I was saying that.
Hold on. Mark McLaughlin. When did Matthew Poitras learn from Mark McLaughlin? They never played together.
Maybe in camp.
You don't learn anything in camp. It's 5 days.
It could just be like a mentorship thing where, you know what I mean? I don't know. Kevin, if you want to elaborate a little bit more, but that is the type of thing that I'm talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Kevin one bit. I'm not disagreeing with him. I just want to know where he mentored Matthew Poitras.
In particular, I'm sure he's probably had mentorship conversations with some of the other players. I mean, Mark McLaughlin could be a captain in Providence someday, even if he doesn't make it back to the NHL. So let's see. Kevin says he told us in an interview, Dom, during camp, he learned a lot from Mark.
I don't remember that.
Like I said, like he said, I'm not arguing with you, Kevin. I'm not trying to say you're wrong or anything like that. I can't speak to it myself. So, but that is exactly the type of role that I was referring to. So
there's a difference between guiding someone through development camp and mentoring somebody.
Right. And it may have been more the first option there, kind of guiding him through his first development camp and kind of showing him the ropes and that sort of stuff, which is still very important. I don't want to discount that, but it would also be a little bit different if we were hearing stories about Mark McLaughlin last year pulling a guy like Fabian Lysell aside and being like, hey, this is what something you should be thinking about, and literally mentoring him into a better player. Kind of like a player coach almost, if you will, but being a captain, being a leader. So Kevin says that you should remember we did the interview.
Yeah, I remember the interview. I just don't remember that.
That's fine. I want to say didn't know about the ECHL, AHL contracts. A lot of people don't. And to Dom's point, a lot of people forget the fact that it's a bigger situation than just what you see at the NHL level. 22, 23 guys at the NHL level. You still have to have guys on Providence, and you have to have a pipeline to refill everything in the system. So it's not a matter of, people sitting here calling a guy like Lysell a bust and whatnot. I mean, Fabian Lysell feasibly could come in and score and take over that second line right wing. It's possible. He has to earn it. He has to do it, but he's got the skill.
I want a sandwich too. That's what I'm here for. Kevin's probably had 3 sandwiches by now.
Right. Kevin says, okay, Poitras learned a lot about how to be a professional during development camp. Better? Sure.
That's much better. Much better.
From other guys who've already done it before, such as someone like Mark McLaughlin. There, Kevin, I finished the thought for you. Anyway. But no, good, solid signings. And I think what you mentioned before, now the only player unsigned at this point is Jeremy Swayman. And that is obviously the most important remaining piece of business, and it's pretty much the last remaining piece of business when it comes to signings. Kevin says I actually had 6 tacos.
I believe that.
I have no doubt in my mind. My question is, Kevin, what went with the 6 tacos? So I actually put out on my site, puckoff.com, and I don't know if you had a chance to look through it. I know I sent it over to you. Kind of where I was thinking. Now, I want to have we confirmed that both sides are trying to get an actual 8-year contract in place?
No, because neither side is saying.
Okay. I thought somewhere I had heard that that was kind of where both sides were targeting. They may land somewhere in the middle, and because like if you look at other 25-year-old goaltenders who have re-upped, a lot of them recently have done 5 years. Hellebuck did
You
5.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to just look at goaltenders. Just with the way the cap's going, I wouldn't be surprised if Swayman's agent is saying, "Let's go for a shorter deal and get a bigger payday
In 5.
in 5 years." Look at Quentin Byfield's deal today.
Yep. Yep. Now, for a term of like 5 years, obviously they have 8.6 per Puckpedia to work with. Where do you see a shorter term deal land? Obviously, you're not going to max out. Like a lot of people are sitting there going, give him 8x8. That if it was that fucking easy, it would be done. I want to put that out there.
I think if they go shorter term, it's 5 years.
I would agree with that. I think 5 seems to be the sweet spot, like you said. Other players have done five a lot. It seems to be a good, solid bridge deal, and he's still going to get a good chunk of money.
Well, I pick 5 because of this. It gets us past a potential lockout.
Yep.
It gets us into a potential league expansion time. I personally think is coming in 2026. It probably won't be 2026 because that's potential lockout. So 2027. And then that added revenue from a season of those teams playing just makes the cap skyrocket.
Yeah, and I know people are saying, well, Swayman should want to lock himself up, and I don't disagree with that sentiment. But if you're looking, and I'll do a little bit more in depth on this one too, but if you're looking at the projections for the cap, like there's some conservative projections that have it in 4 or 5 years upwards of 120 million.
Easy. Oh, 120? No, I don't know about that.
Well, in that closer to 5-year range. Again, depending on if you consider expansion and stuff like that. Just in the next 3 years alone, the next 3 years, you're going to incorporate Seattle's revenue, Vegas's revenue, and now Utah's revenue. Because let's face it, Utah, formerly Arizona, was not a revenue generator before. It is now.
Yeah, I think next year we're going to see a cap in and around 92.5 million.
I was going to say next year, I think it's based on the CBA extension and the COVID negotiations. I think it goes up another 5% next year.
Well, it could go up 5%. It could go up more based on revenue.
Okay. So on the low end, roughly 5%, like you said, right around 92.5. I think 5% would put it right around 92.4 or something like that.
Yeah, I think the escalator is at 5%, but it'll be based on revenue. And again, like we saw this year, teams that make the playoffs and go the furthest, like Edmonton, add a pile of money to the cap.
Absolutely. So if we ballpark 92.5, I mean, realistically, we may be able to see what they did this year, and they just bump it up a little bit more to make it a nice round 93 or 95 or something like that. But that's going into next season. It's going to go up even more after that.
Yeah. There's also and I mentioned it in the last episode, the Montreal Canadiens local television deal expires, and that's going to be big bucks.
Yep. Yep, more TV revenue. So, a 5-year term for Swayman gets you across every single one of those bridges. He'll only be 30, and he'll have much more value over those next 5 years because this team, with the additions of Zadorov and Lindholm, are going to be a lot more ready to compete in the playoffs. And so if he just performs in the playoffs, he can have a somewhat decent regular season. And if he plays the playoffs half of the way he did this year, like, it'll be no question that they want to extend him 8 years.
There's no question, not this contract, but if he goes shorter, his next deal is worth over $10 million. What they have to weigh out is what if he has a career-ending injury?
Right.
Is it worth, let's say his next deal, not this one, is 6 years at $10 million. So, he's earning, let's say he gets 5 times 8 this time instead of going for 8. So he's getting another 3 years at $2 million. Is an extra $6 million by not going the full. Is it worth $6 million over the value of the contract if he to wait it out and then suffer a career-ending injury, and that money's gone anyway?
Right. Real quick, I want a sandwich wants to know, can you please unpack the quote potential lockout unquote in 26? Are we saying this simply because the CBA ends, or are we expecting a contentious negotiation?
It's because the CBA ends. There is a clause that allows both sides, if they agree to it, to extend it for 1 year.
To basically continue negotiations.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the last episode. So, are there contentious issues? I don't know, because the PA got escrow down where they want it.
Ever since, at least in my opinion too, ever since Marty Walsh came in for the players side of things, I don't want to say it's been less contentious, but it's just been more, let's get this done. Let's figure things out. Let's progress quicker rather than delaying. Let's have the negotiation, figure out where you're at, figure out where we are, and then instead of taking 6 weeks to come back to the table, let's come back to the table next week. Things seem to be getting done quicker on the player side of things when it comes to what the Players Association needs to get done.
Yeah, I think I think the contentious issues like the escrow are taken care of. They also got the increase in entry level contracts to over $1 million this season, and then it goes up again next season. So I think the union got in this last extension a lot of things they were looking for. International hockey is another one. Things like that. By the way, the revenue just from the Four Nations thing also goes to hockey-related revenue. Might add that in. So we might see some movement in free agency and contract length. I think the union might think that 3 years is too long for an entry-level contract. I think the owners might be thinking 8-year max on your own players is too long.
Right.
So we might be seeing something there. But I think those are the contentious issues. I can't think of anything where they would. Let's put it this way. I can't see anything that the players would strike on. And,
yeah,
yeah, I can't see anything where the owners would lock the players out. I,
Nothing
unless
is
I'm,
so far apart that they're like, because right now, especially what they're doing is working
yeah,
as far as growing the league, as far as the cap. I mean, right now, the biggest reason why the cap hasn't jumped up is because of COVID. So like you said, now that the escrow is paid off or about to be, whatever the calculation is there, and you have so many more things, like I said, Arizona now becoming Utah, generating revenue, Seattle generating revenue, Vegas generating revenue. And we're not talking pennies here. We're talking big, big dollars, hundreds of millions in revenue per. If you get two more teams in there, two more markets that will at least kick off correctly, making some good money, whether they sustain it or not is different, but kicking off, making some good money to start that revenue in. You mentioned the Four Nations face off. Like, those are all things that will help get diversified throughout the league and bring that cap up. So, and we'll have to see how the deal with Fanatics works because revenue does come from merch,
yeah,
and Fanatics hasn't had the best, we'll call it, reputation when it comes to some of their merch. So we'll have to see how that affects revenue on the merchandise side, but people are still going to go to games. The TV packages are going to continue to get reworked. You mentioned Montreal's is coming up. That one's going to be worth a lot. At some point, you'll probably see big dollars come in from some of the streaming services. We've already seen ESPN invest in streaming when it comes to the NHL, but look for Amazon to probably become a player at some point. Hulu themselves, which I think their parent company is ABC and Disney. So I don't know, because they also own ESPN. We'll big money. So that cap is just going to continue to go up. That's going to help the players. So the players have no reason to say we need massive change.
yeah. I don't think there's anything massive coming.
So, and then Kevin says, now I want a sandwich. Kevin, when don't you want a sandwich? That's my question. I think he wants a sandwich more often than he doesn't. So, but yeah, no. So again, mostly because that's when the CBA comes up. It's potential for one, but things can change between any minute, and all of a sudden things become more contentious than they are. So, with that though, let's see. We covered the signings. Oh, Swayman's contract. Do you have a number in mind? We talked a lot about about some of these other contracts. Do you have like Jake DeBrusk's contract, for instance? We talked about that for a lot during the season. At a 5-year term, what are you looking at dollar amount for Swayman?
Oh, I don't know. Not even a clue. I'm not even going to guess at it. Not
Not
even
not
going to
on
guess
not on a
at it.
whim, huh?
No,
I'll put it
no.
this way. I think they have enough room in their cap space
Oh,
based on
that's
that
without question.
8.6 to get a 5-year deal done. If you're trying to buy 3 more years of his free agency, I think you go north of 9 by a little bit. But I do think a bridge 4 to 6 years. I think 5 is the perfect amount. I think that's where they land.
Yeah, no idea where it's going to come. There's so much in play. It comes into a new. You know what? They could sign Swayman to a 5-year deal for $775,000 per season in salary and $7 million in signing bonuses each year, which works out to $7,775,000 cap hit. That's worth an $8.5 million contract because all
Right.
that money is guaranteed. No matter what, unless the players strike, that money is guaranteed to them.
Right. And
So
we talked about it with DeBrusk. He's going to want lockout protection. He's going to want trade protection.
maybe he doesn't, but his agent's going to want it.
Yeah, true. True. I mean, players seem to want at least some trade control, whether it's a 5 list or a 3 to 5 or 10 team list or something like that, especially with the way someone like Linus Ullmark was very open about what that means to players to have some of that control. So even if it's modified, I do see him getting something.
Here's how negotiations work, Chris. I'll give you the inside story. The agent and the player sits down. The agent says to the player, "What's the minimum you will accept?" He says, $5 million. The agent says, "Well, I think I can get you 7, but let me try and work on that. Do you want any type of trade protection?" "Well, there's like maybe 5 teams I don't want to play for." "Okay, let me try to get that 12. Okay. And then the player walks away and isn't involved anymore. And then the agent and Sweeney, and that now might be a good time to put up that email I got asking the question on who is involved.
I will have to pull that up because one thing I did not have a chance to do before the show.
Okay, well, don't waste your time. The email basically asked, is it just Sweeney involved in the negotiations, or is Evan Gold involved? Evan Gold is involved in contract negotiations. Says so right on the Bruins website. It's part of his job. He's the head of the legal department. He's a lawyer. And when it comes to he's the CBA expert and the cap expert. So when it comes to all the legal stuff, it's all up here with him. He doesn't have to stop and go down the hall and ask anybody. So, yeah, he's heavily involved in the negotiations.
Yep, real quick, Matrix saying that they've got to run. But, yep, absolutely, we'll be doing this going forward. So thanks for checking it out. I know you're here often, but have a great night, and we will see you next time when you're able to be back. So Kevin also passing along those sentiments. So just wanted to give him a shout out real quick for jumping on as briefly as he was able to. So you were saying Evan Gold involved in those negotiations. So the player then, after making it clear the minimums to his agent, what they're looking for, the agent then sits down. In this case, it'd be Sweeney and Gold.
Yeah.
And have those, they negotiate then. And obviously the team tries to fight for paying less and less protection in the trades, and the agent fights for more. And then they find somewhere to meet in the middle that the agent can then go back to the player with and say, hey, you wanted 5, they wanted whatever. I shot for 7, I got you 5.5. Player's happy. Yeah. You wanted 5 teams, I asked for a full, and we settled on a 10 team. Players happy.
That's how it works. But the days of Byron Defoe firing his agent and negotiating himself against Harry Sinden are long gone. Players don't get involved in the negotiations. They tell their agent what they want, the minimum they'll accept, and the agent, because he earns 3 to 5%, is going to try for more.
Right. And that's why they hire an agent, because then they don't have to get to with their own boss.
Right.
The boss can get pissed off at the agent all they want. That is the whole point of having the agent there as a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Plain and simple. As a player, you sit there and go, this is what I hire you for, so my phone's not going off with this shit. It also makes the player's life a lot easier, too, because when the media throw microphones in their face and they go, contract, the player can go, talk to my agent.
Yeah.
It makes their life easier in so many ways.
Just to tell you, let's say Swayman signs an 8-year, $8 million contract, $64 million. The agent earns $3.2 million out of that.
Yeah. So the agent would be trying to get a little bit more.
Yeah. So let's say he signs for 5 times 6. Right?
That would be
30 million bucks.
Now
is 1.5 million bucks. What do you think the agent's going to go for?
Yeah, right. They're going to go for the deal that gets the player to sign the dotted line. but as high amount as they can for that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's, I think, a question that some might have as well. You mentioned the signing bonuses would be fully guaranteed, minus the players walking out. If Swayman's contract is structured so that it's just all salary, so we'll use that 5-year or 6-year, $5 million as an example, 30 million, and it's all in salary, so $5 million per year.
Mm-hmm.
Is the agent is paid out of each weekly check during the regular season, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that's clear for many watching who may not know how, because obviously there's also, the players union. They have to pay into those funds and stuff like that. Kevin's sitting here going, I'm becoming an agent. Good fucking luck.
It's actually pretty easy to do. You just got to get certified by the NHLPA.
You've met Kevin, right?
Oh,
that's why I'm saying. He'll be too busy eating to study for any tests and certification exams.
yeah.
Bear Force One says, I want to be Dom's agent. I think he needs to know your fee, Bear.
Yeah.
If he's giving you 3.5%, you might have to give him a little bit better of a deal than that. So, I personally am not all that worried. Kevin says, I'll bring tacos. You'll have eaten them all. You can't bring tacos when you're the one who's eating them on the way there.
Yeah.
So I put my worry level at 1, I'll say, when it comes to signing Swayman. Right now, I'm not worried about it at all.
I'm not.
Time. And what's the next deadline that we have to worry about for that?
Opening night of training camp.
And then
I won't even worry if he's not at captain's practices.
Oh,
I will worry.
Worry that either.
I will worry when training camp opens and he's not there signed.
I think that's a good benchmark to have. There's going to be plenty of stuff going on between now and then. People are going to panic, and there is no worry of an offer sheet. Anybody telling you otherwise doesn't understand how an offer sheet works.
I would suggest going out and or over the next few weeks is sit down and watch the Hlinka Gretzky tournament. It's going to be an awesome tournament. Some great young players, and that'll help you get ahead on next year's draft.
Or as Kevin says, my worry level is at 0. Unlike 98% of Bruins fans, I'm touching grass. Go relax.
More like smoking it.
He's probably doing both. But point being, just relax about it. Don't worry about it till you got to worry about it. And right now, you ain't got to worry about it.
Yeah.
And Bear Force One says that he'll take whatever you throw their way. So nothing. They will work for free.
Okay.
So I think we just got you an agent.
I didn't know I needed one, but
I didn't know you needed one either. So that means I'll have to go through them every week to make sure we're good for the show.
So before we move on to potential roster, I really hate discussing rosters in July. Since you brought it up, to this morning, I wrote a piece on would the Bruins potentially start the season with 3 goaltenders on the roster.
It's funny you bring that up because I think the two are related.
They are.
And your article.
So we know the Bruins have enough money to get Jeremy Swayman signed and carry a 23-man roster. What we don't know is whether the Bruins would carry 2 extra defensemen or 2 extra forwards to get to the 23-man roster. And I looked at it and I said to myself, we basically know who the 7 defensemen are. We don't know who the 13 forwards are. There's some maneuvering there. So if Swayman, Korpisalo, and DiPietro all go in and have a solid camp, and all are worthy of being a backup to Swayman, what do you do? Because now you have to put 2 through waivers to get them down to the American Hockey League.
Now, real quick, because I know someone's probably typing feverishly on their phone or in their comment section, and we'll get it shortly. You didn't mention Brandon Bussey.
Sorry, Bussey. Who did I say?
DiPietro. Now, coming out of last season, though, there was some favoritism towards DiPietro potentially competing.
Okay, I just, yeah. So we don't have to go into great detail. I just forgot him. I thought I mentioned 3 goaltenders.
Well, you did. It's just you mentioned DiPietro instead of Bussey. So I just wanted to clarify whether
No, I thought I mentioned 3. Korpisalo, Bussey, and Swayman. Maybe I didn't. And Korpisalo, Bussey, and DiPietro as
2
the backup.
3 potentially could stick on the roster, basically.
Right. So my argument was that you only have to carry 7 defensemen. If 3 of them are equal, you're going to have to try and get 1 through waivers, and you can hold on to the second one until the season starts. Carry 7 defensemen, 13 forwards, and that's your 23-man roster. And then try and get the other 1 through waivers, because once the season starts, and you claim somebody off waivers, they have to remain on the roster for the entire season. I said Swayman, not Bussey. Okay, my mistake. Obviously, Swayman isn't fighting for a backup role.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I wasn't totally sure on. And Shaz, appreciate you jumping out. Bear Force says Kevin will work for sandwiches. Kevin says I'll work for a menu with my choice. That may cost more than 5%. So apparently we're still negotiating agent terms. But so and honestly, I think Bussey and DiPietro make close enough to the same that it would make pennies of a difference if one went down versus the other. So the bigger issue would be Korpisalo carrying Swayman, and then Korpisalo and one of the other 2.
Yeah, it's I just put it there as an option to it as a way to not lose a goaltender for nothing.
Yeah, and Kevin makes a good point. Imagine if Korpisalo outplayed Swayman. I don't think he's going to quite outplay him, but he's an NHL starting caliber goaltender. He's had some rough seasons. He's got good potential. I don't know why people are shitting on him as part of the return as much as they have been. Like, he had a down year.
Because they do. That's what Bruins fans do.
Yeah.
Like last week, I said Andrew Peeke is the new whipping boy amongst Bruins fans. If you read Bruins fans in last week, it's now Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah. Yeah, Charlie McAvoy needs to be traded. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. Brandon Carlo has been mentioned in trades. I mean, there is that ridiculous, absolutely outrageously stupid trade that somehow took waves and caught fire of bringing in Rempe and Trouba for Carlo, and I think it was Beecher, which is just never going to happen.
That doesn't even deserve commenting on. Maybe a sentence to call it bullshit, but it doesn't even deserve
So Bear Force One asks, what are the chances Korpisalo has as good or even better season than Ullmark? Now, I want to clarify with Bear Force here real quick. You mean his upcoming season in Ottawa, or do you mean what he's done in Boston?
I think he means what Ullmark did in Boston.
That's what I want to clarify, because I took it the other way. I was wondering if he thought, what if his question is who's going to basically have a better year this coming year, Korpisalo or Ullmark? So Kevin said no one expected a Halak to outplay Tuukka Rask at times, but he sure did. I wouldn't be surprised if...
I wouldn't be surprised either. Let's look at it this way. Could he be better? Possibly. Probably not. Could he put up better numbers? Definitely. Just based on the better defense.
Yeah. Yeah. He will be better than he was in Ottawa. I think that's a very fair statement to put some money on, just because the structure is better, the quality of defensive player you have is overall better, and your goaltending coach is better. So he's already in a better situation. And I know a lot of people are picking apart some of his comments about saying how he doesn't have a lot, or in his opinion, to work on in his game and stuff of that nature, which, you know, I would say he probably doesn't have a lot that needs to get altered. It's just a matter of, especially when you have a year like they were having in Ottawa. Let's not forget how the season started. Brand new ownership, brand new management. You had one of your best young players get suspended for half the season. So the whole season started out in a fucking blender for everyone on the team. And then everyone's sitting there playing with that look over their shoulder of what's going to happen. Are they going to buy at the deadline? Are they going to sell at the deadline? Oh, we're not playing well. They're going to sell off pieces. Who's staying? Who's going? What are they doing? And, I mean, we saw that with Jake DeBrusk. You don't play well under those conditions. A lot of people just don't. Mistakes were happening in front of him. He was making his own mistakes. Mistakes compound on mistakes. Everyone starts holding the stick tighter, and now everybody sucks. He's in a much better place already just by saying, I'm in Boston. I don't have all that other bullshit to worry about.
And let's face it, Bob Essenza broke video down. He watched video. If he didn't think that he could work on with Corpusalo and get him back to what he was like with LA, he wouldn't be a Bruin.
Right. They would have, at that point, you're not gaining enough in that deal. Yes, the 25th pick was very helpful, but you're not taking on an anchor on purpose just to get rid of a Vezina caliber goaltender.
No.
Who might be making your goal. Because at that point, you could have rode Ullmark and Swayman into the season and moved them at the deadline. You might have taken less for them, but you could have done that. Put yourself in a good position to start the season, to have, Bussy or DiPietro come up and only have to be a backup for half the season. So, as I Want a Sandwich says, goalies are voodoo. I just don't think there's a lot of people who understand everything that goes into the position. And so there's a lot of guesswork that's done when it comes to goalies. That's something that Bob Essenza, he's not guessing at it. He knows what he's doing. So if you really, truly think goaltenders are voodoo, just go, I've got faith in Bob Essenza, and call it a day. As people blindly put faith in Bill Belichick when he was the Patriots head coach, blindly put your faith in Bob Essenza because he's involved in anything that goes on in that goaltending room. That's the best I can tell you. Shaz says Boston's overall defensive system is better. Absolutely. I mean, you've got guys.
There's no debate. There's no debate.
Your top three are McAvoy, Carlo, and Lindholm. And now you just added Zadorov to the mix. And let's face it, Wotherspoon and Peak, both last year, were very, very good shutdown guys. They're not going to be massive puck movers, but boy, did they shut people down. They block shots. They get in the way. They force the opposition to have a hard time. All good things. Last I checked. I could be wrong. But last I checked, those were still good things for a defenseman to do. Bear Force also says just about every team in the league would want Carlo, especially at $4 million. Absolutely. Yeah. Every team would want him. I don't know about just about every team would want him. So, remember when people thought that deal looked bad? That deal's going to age poorly. Kevin says, do you think Ullmark could have garnered more of a return at the deadline or less? Curious what you guys think, because I see a lot of people throwing that out there.
You can't say one way or the other because it all depends on circumstances. if New Jersey is fighting with Florida for first place in the Eastern Conference, and all of a sudden Jacob Markstrom goes down with an injury, a season-ending injury a week before trade deadline, well, Ullmark would have just become very valuable to New
Priority
Jersey.
number one.
Whereas if no goalie is injured and everybody is where they're supposed to be in the standings, you're not getting much for them.
Right.
So, sir, it's supply and demand.
100%. And I mean, imagine if Florida's doing well and Bob goes down with an injury. Like, yeah, they've got Spencer Knight, but behind him, not much anymore. In New Jersey, Jake Allen's behind Markstrom. So, but again, now you're talking about who's behind him. Are you that anxious to go back to Nico Dawes? Like, there's just so much. I mean, Vegas could all of a sudden emerge and want a goaltender because they can't seem to get enough of them ever.
I wasn't yelling, Kevin. I wasn't yelling.
He was just disappointed that you asked the question. No, I'm just kidding. It's a fair question. I think
it's a fair question, but
I think overall you were more likely to get less at the deadline of the two options.
Now, you can't even say that because there's no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing what team is put into what position that they might be needing a goaltender.
Yeah. Let's see. Bear Force also says 1 through 6. There are not many D-cores in the league better than the Bruins. I mean, I think they, if not top 1, top 3. Is there anybody that comes off the top of your head as definitively better than the Bruins when it comes to their D-core 1 through 6?
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, no one comes off the cuff of like they are definitely better. Like, if you say, oh, the top 6, name a team with a better top 6 group. You can name 2 or 3 right off the top of your head without even really thinking about it. Then you'll probably come up with 3 or 4 or 5 more at a minimum. Defensively, though, you really got to put some time in to think about it. Let's see. I Want a Sandwich says more with an extension, sure, but given the circumstances, Sweeney did as well as he could. At the current, absolutely. Not getting an extension in place crushed his value at this stage. And this is all that you can do to trade him. So Shaz says, as a 5-man unit, their defensive system is better.
Now, let me throw this question at you. If Ullmark does not re-sign with Ottawa and decides to go someplace else after next season, would people cave in and say the Bruins won the trade?
I think people are still if you put that hypothetical out there, most people will probably respond with, well, how does Korpisalo do? What does he look like?
He's a backup goaltender.
I already think I don't want to say they won the trade, but they got a very good, fair value in return and did pretty well. I think they made it better with the Dean Letourneau pick. Hopefully now it comes down to just his development. And the fact that you were also able to get, at minimum, an NHL backup goaltender for a few seasons, because again, he's been a starter. He is an NHL goaltender. Whether he gets starter time, whether he gets backup time, it remains to be seen. But, I mean, this is a guy who's put up 74 saves in a 3 overtime playoff game. Like, he's not just going to cave over and give up 7 goals a game. He doesn't suck that much. So he addressed a need for a long term too. You need a backup goaltender. Every year you need a backup goaltender. Barring him having a season-ending injury or falling off a cliff, I wouldn't like to pay $3 million for him for this season. However, you don't always have a choice. You were going to spend at least 2 on that role probably to begin with, unless it was Bussy for sure or DiPietro for sure. And it wasn't. So is it a little bit of an overpay for the role right now? Maybe, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when the cap goes up, no one's going to blink an eye at it. And then I Want a Sandwich also says they needed to trade him. They needed to trade him before July 1st, and they got a first out of it. Just hate that they'll still be spending the same overall money at the position as last year.
Oh, no, they'll be spending more.
On goaltending? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be spending more because Swayman's going to get a raise. And I mean, but the thing is you now have Korpisalo locked up at a rate too, because we've talked about other players. What if DiPietro comes in or Bossy comes in and they have a hell of a season? Now all of a sudden they need a new contract in a year or two, and they're priced out from what you can afford for a number two. Korpisalo gives you that security for this year, and what is it, 3 more, or is it 2 more after that?
3 more.
3 more. So for 4 seasons, you have the security of a number 2 goaltender locked in at what might be a little bit overpay in year 1, but by 2, 3, and 4, you won't be crying about that $3 million salary. So, and do you think they really had to trade him before the draft, or was that more of a desire just to try and get the draft pick back?
No, I think they had to.
I think that was an internal deadline that if they couldn't pull the trigger by then on something to get a first round pick, then they would probably have gone into the season with both Swayman and Ullmark one more time. So, but I do think, to your point, entering the season with 3 goaltenders is a very viable option just to lock them up. I mean, it's a very viable thing to do. I wouldn't be surprised. So let's see. We got about a half hour left. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we kind of dive into what some of the lineup might look like with what we know and kind of what we could see happening with some of the options here?
We don't know a heck of a lot. We don't know who the 2 goaltenders are going to be. We kind of know who the 7 defensemen are going to be.
Yep. Now, how with Zadorov now in the mix, how would you like to see those 6? Because I think we're all in agreement that Wotherspoon is the 7th guy.
Mm-hmm.
So how?
But don't count him out of beating Andrew Peeke.
I don't count him out. I'm just saying I think he's more likely than not going to be the 7th defenseman.
Yeah.
So with that thought, as far as real quick before we make the transition, Mike jumping in. Sorry for jumping in late. I like the article today on 3 goalies. Could see that happen. So clearly he read your article. And as we're shifting from that topic, Mike, nice jump in to get there right before we shift to the lineup. So
I see the defense as follows. The right side is a lock. Charlie McAvoy is your number 1. Brandon Carlo is your number 2. And I'm 99% sure that Andrew Peeke is the number 3. The left side, you mix and match. It all depends on game situation, line matchup, team matchup. I just see the 3 on the left mixing and matching differently at any given time with the guys on the right.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be situational too, because you could put you can do any combination of left-right, essentially. I wouldn't necessarily be thrilled about a Zadorov Peeke pairing, but there may be a situation where it's called upon. And I don't think
you might see it on the PK. So why wouldn't you want them getting some 5-on-5 time together to form some chemistry?
Yeah, I'm not. And clearly Montgomery has no issues shuffling up lineups.
No.
So especially early in the season, I think you'll see that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see a lot of it too based off of the way the game is going. If you're getting a lot of PK time, you'll see less of Mason Lohrei. You'll see more of Andrew Peak and more of Hampus Lindholm and more of Brandon Carlo.
Right.
If you're getting a lot of power play time, you'll see a lot more probably Charlie McAvoy. You'll probably see more Mason Lohrei.
I think the only question to be answered on defense is if they carry eight defensemen, who the number 8 is. That's the only question on defense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Your left side is going to move up and down the lineup. Your right side is locked in.
Yeah, that's about it. And I don't think I want them locking in the left side. I think
you can't, because then you'd have to move the right side all around. And
right. I think
there's no situation where Carlo should be playing ahead of McAvoy.
Right. And I think the way that this lineup is lined up, having the ability to put out any two combination of right side, left side is also going to be to your benefit. Because then the opposition doesn't necessarily know which group of defensemen is going to go out there next. Small advantage, but it gives you some flexibility when you don't have last change. So, as far as the forward group, though, again, we don't even know for sure. A lot of people are writing in Zacha, Lindholm, Pastrnak. I don't have a reason to disagree with it. Do you?
No, to me, that's the only one that's set in stone.
And then we know Marchand is going to be the next left wing
with Coyle
as the 2C. The question then becomes, because those are two shutdown guys who can have a little bit of offense, are you going to try and go with someone who's a little more offensive minded if he wins the job, like a Fabian Lysell? I know some people have tried to pencil in Georgi Merkulov there. I know you wrote an article about that not too long ago, and I was planning on asking you today, actually. Georgi Merkulov on the right side. I don't feel good about that. I don't think he's ever.
I went back and I watched video all the way back to his MHL days in Russia and couldn't find an instance where he was on the right wing other than on the PP. That's it. He's never played it, so he's going to learn that at the NHL level.
That was my question. People have penciled him in there a lot, and I've just every time I see it, I go, I don't see him making the switch. I'm pretty sure he's only left side, maybe down the middle. But here's
the only way Merkulov is going to fit in. If Trent Frederick takes that second line right wing spot, or Morgan Geekie takes it. If Frederick moves up, okay, there's a spot there for Merkulov on left wing. But is Jim Montgomery going to play Merkulov and Patra on the same line? I doubt it.
I don't see it.
If Geekie moves up, Frederick can move to the right. Merkulov can take Frederick's spot on the left. Again, he's not going to play Merkulov and Patra together. So for Merkulov to make this roster, he's going to have to beat Patra out of camp. Well, the only way I see it.
I would agree with you on that. The only other scenario is if he and Patra show a Zacha Pastrnak-like chemistry on the ice with them in those roles.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, Chris.
I don't see that happening because I don't see them.
It could happen. It could, because we haven't seen them together. But we know NHL coaches just don't do that.
Right. That's what I mean. I just don't know if we'll see them get the chance to do it. That's my concern.
Yeah.
They may.
It's not going to happen.
Like that, but we wouldn't know that until Patra's got another year or two under his belt, and then he's trusted to have a rookie first-time winger on his side. So I just don't see it happening. So I don't think Merkulov makes the team coming out of camp because I think Patra wins out that job. I think you're more likely to see Fabian Lysell take that right wing spot on the second line which I wouldn't be against, because now you're putting him with two veteran pros in Coyle and Marchand. You
Right,
have
because I mean they could put Geeky there and Lysell on the third, but again, they're not playing Patra on Lysell or Merkulov if he beats Patra out and Lysell on the same line. Just not, even though they have chemistry, playing 2 years in the American Hockey League, it ain't going to happen at the NHL level.
Yeah, I just don't see it. That's why I'm saying I think it'll end up being Lysell on the second line, right wing, with two pros, Coyle and Marchand. And then your third line, we could see a reuniting of Frederick, Poitras, and Geeky. And I wouldn't hate that at all.
I wouldn't hate it at all either. What I do hate, I shouldn't say I hate it, but people. Okay, first of all, let me give you my fourth line. It's any combination of Max Jones, John Beecher, Mark Kostelic, and Justin Brazeau.
Yeah.
Okay? Switches every night. But people are penciling in or saying Brazeau deserves a shot at the second line right wing.
No.
He deserves to start there.
No.
First of all, think about what Montgomery and Sweeney have been preaching this offseason. And the moves that they made are based all on this one thing: arriving on time on the forecheck.
I just don't see it. He didn't have he's not fast enough to play a top six role. His skating isn't there. I get it. It's better than, many people thought it was, but he's not a top six talent yet. Could he get there? Maybe one day, but he's not there yet. That's not a bad thing. There's still plenty of room in this lineup for him.
Yeah. He's 27 years old. He's done developing. He's in his prime now.
We also have to remember last year in the playoffs, we talked about it last week. This guy, for his size, was getting pushed around, pushed off of the puck, couldn't play and fight in board battles in the playoffs. Like, you're not putting that guy on your second line to go up against other teams' second line. You're just not doing that.
Yeah, or if Montgomery wants to give them heavier defensive responsibilities to free up the first line more, I would argue that Fabian Lysell doesn't fit that either.
Yep, I would agree. If that's the direction of the line that you're trying to take, I could definitely see it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and you mentioned this line combination last week too. I think it was last week, might have been the week before, where you see Marchand, Coyle, and Frederick together. Freddie on that right side, and then on the third line left wing, not Merkulov, but Max Jones.
Max Jones.
And then you would see Jones, Poitras, and Geeky. Wouldn't hate that at all. And then you feed, because here's my question. Of the two, who do you see more likely to make this lineup out of camp? Georgi Merkulov or Trevor Kuntar? This is where camp becomes vitally important, because Kuntar is going to make a push.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been, ever since last playoffs, you've heard me say this a bunch. I think Brazeau doesn't make the team out of camp. I don't. He could come back and have a good camp. I'm leaving the door open for that. But the way he got pushed around in the playoffs, didn't use his size, got pushed off the puck along the boards. Again, we saw it with Mark McLaughlin. He didn't come back up the following season. I just can't put my eye on it or put the words to it. There's just something I didn't like about what I saw, that I'm not totally convinced.
No, but I've been saying it too. I'm not saying he's not going to make the team, but
So I think your fourth line could be Kostelic, Beecher, Kuntar, and then maybe Brazeau's your 13th forward, but I'm not sure. Maybe Liesel is your 13th forward.
no, you can't put a 20-year-old as your 13th forward. You cannot.
Because
See, here's the thing. Merkulov is going to be 24 when the next season starts.
Yeah,
I believe. Okay.
That sounds right.
Liesel is 20 years old. Or is he 21? 21. Patra's 20. Okay. There is nothing wrong with Fabian Liesel or Matthew Patra going down to the American Hockey League as a 21-year-old and 20-year-old respectively for one more season. That does not make them busts. For Merkulov as a 24-year-old, this is the time he has to take the bull by the horns and make something happen. Because there ain't going to be many more opportunities when he's 25.
So,
again, like I said last week, if I could take Matthew Patra's heart and implant it in Fabian Liesel or Georgi Merkulov, then I wouldn't count them out.
So would you potentially see, because they've done everything they can to keep Merkulov at the center position as well.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to try to have him compete directly with Patra for the third line center position?
If Patra goes in and his shoulder is at 100%, then yeah, that's where they want him. That's what they want Merkulov to take. They don't want him battling with Elias Lindholm or Charlie Coyle.
Well, no, as far as the left side versus the center.
No, but I mean, Patra is the concern down the middle. His health.
Right.
You don't want Fabian Liesel competing for that.
No.
No, you want Georgi Merkulov competing for that.
Yeah, I guess the question would be more so, do you think their goal is to have Georgi Merkulov stay at center, or are they okay with moving him to the wing? Because, like, on that third line, if, let's say, Patra isn't 100% to start the season, let's just say that that's the case. You could have Merkulov center that third line, you could have Geeky center that third line.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, Chris. They can move in and out for face-offs.
Well, I wasn't referring to just the face-off part.
Okay, but what are you referring to? Merkulov has played half a season in the American Hockey League on left wing, and that was a season and a half ago. When Vinny Lettieri went down for his injury, he got moved to the middle.
So are you trying to keep him? Is he a natural left wing, or is he a natural?
He's a natural center.
That's what I thought. So you're trying to keep him at the center position.
Well, it appears that's what the Bruins are doing because that's where they played him all last year. Unlike Trevor Kuntar, who moves back and forth.
Right. And does it well. No, I just, because I've heard some people say that the only way Merkulov makes the National Hockey League is as a left wing, which obviously if they're trying to keep him down the middle, then yeah, you'd want him competing for the center position and wouldn't necessarily kick him over to the wing to see how that looks. So that's where ultimately the camp is going to define so much. Because
okay, but to these people, who is Merkulov beating out on left wing? Zaka, Marchand, Frederick, or Jones? None of the above.
I think the thought is Jones.
He's not beating any of them out. Merkulov is not a fourth line player. He's not beating Jones out. Okay. If Patra is not 100% come opening night, let's say he's only at 90%, do you risk playing him or do you replace them? You replace them.
Yeah,
You
I mean
do.
that's
You
a
do
player
not risk.
long
So
term.
who is there?
Well, your options would be to slide Geeky over and put him at the middle, or put Merkulov in the middle. And I think what they would opt to do is go with Merkulov.
Right. You're not sliding any. If they need Geeky to go over and take the face off from Merkulov,
Sure.
okay. But you can't fill one hole and create another one, because if you move Geeky over, who's on the right side then?
Because this is why it would have been a lot easier to just bring Jake DeBrusk back.
No, you got to think by position. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's options at the NHL level, but then there's nobody to fill in the option.
Right. Unless you want a guy playing out of position, and that never goes well.
Right. So you leave Geeky and Frederick where they are, and you slot Merkulov in the middle, exactly like they did last year.
It's not a video game.
Patro went to the World Juniors. They brought Merkulov in. They didn't move him to the left wing. They didn't move him to right wing. They put him in his natural position.
And
There to replace Patra.
And he wasn't ready.
Right.
So the question is he ready now? If he's not ready now, like you said, he's not going to get very many more chances. So he's got to show something.
Yeah, exactly. It's I wouldn't say it's make it or break it time.
It's damn near
But
close, though.
it's pretty darn close, because he's going to be 24 when the season starts.
Yeah, it's as close as to getting to that point as you can get without it being there, pretty much.
Right.
So and
it could be another Oscar Steen situation.
Fair, yeah. Another guy who just got the bag going back overseas. Good for him. So
I couldn't believe he got a 5-year contract.
Yeah, I mean, good. He went back home though, right?
But even if it is back home, it's not often the Swedish Hockey League gives out 5-year contracts.
I'm just happy that things are if he's happy going home, playing at home, good for him. If that's all he could get and he's still trying to fight his way back, then 5 years is just not worth. I think the 5-year deal tells you he wanted to go back. He's okay with playing back home, which is good for him. Fine.
Yeah.
Pro players getting what they're looking for in their deals. So we're approaching the 8:00 hour here in the Eastern time zone, which is usually when we tend to work on wrapping it up. If anybody's got last minute questions here, we're happy to grab them in the comment section here. But Dom, do you have, I mean, that's kind of been where I've been at for the last week or so, as far as the things to jump around on this week. I don't expect a lot over the next 7 days from the organization. We might get a Swayman contract. I doubt it. I don't think it's that imminent as far as getting something done, but
Well, when it's really going to get nerve-wracking is Don Sweeney will be gone to the Hive in Holinka when it begins. I believe it starts August the 8th. If there's no deal with Swayman then, we're not getting one during the Holinka Gretzky. So it's going to get even more nerve-wracking for Bees fans.
Let's see. I'm just looking at, you said that starts maybe the week of the 8th.
I think so, yeah.
So from that, the 8th is a Thursday. So that would be 3 weeks. You have the rest of this week and then 2 weeks after that. And then, so you basically have 3 weeks between now and then. I doubt they would do it on the 7th or the day before. I would say an internal deadline, if they're trying to get it done before that, would be the 5th. Just so that they can get prepared to go to the tournament and deal with all that stuff without it being a big major thing. As that date gets closer, that's when you should start being a little bit more nervous. But even then, like I said, we may not get it by next week. We very well might. That gives Sweeney 2-week vacation before going there. So let's see. Shaz says, any thoughts on coaching since Montgomery's in his final year and no talks of an extension? That is a good question.
I think we'll have to wait and see how the season goes.
It'll be very interesting, though, because I think you got two guys in-house who could be succession plans if things go awry with Montgomery. Here's the thing. With the exception of his first season, record-setting season, not switching up goaltending in the playoffs, and making a couple questionable decisions on the lineup, which I'm sorry, but most people, if Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci come to you and say they're ready to go, those guys are going in the lineup. So should someone have been fired from that? You and I both agree. It's kind of late for that, though. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be in a rush to re-sign Montgomery until they know how the season goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it could be one where that becomes a thing to watch come the deadline as well.
Yeah.
Where
I
they
don't think Charlie Jacobs wants to be paying for two coaches again.
Yeah, right. My guess is they probably have an understanding of, let's see where we are come this point of the calendar, and then we can discuss an extension.
Yeah.
That way there no one worries about it between now and then. I Want a Sandwich says, great show. Appreciate the insight. We love having you. Hopefully, what I would say is share it with your friends. For some reason, we are losing the ability to stream on Twitter. They are making that a premium-only thing. So we're trying to figure some stuff out when it comes to that. Best thing I can suggest is check out the YouTube channel, subscribe on there, get the alert when we go live. I do try to include the link every week on Twitter for those of you who are there. But we are also on Twitch, same handle. But I do want to thank
I'm not paying Elon Musk almost $200 a year just so you guys can see my ugly mug on Twitter.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't be willing to do the same either. So, but I do want to thank everybody for jumping in. We have a lot of people who are on YouTube, which is awesome. So I guess the goal would be to get more people over there. So tell your friends where to find us over there. That would be awesome. And thank you, everybody. And I got nothing else. Do you have anything else to add?
No, just go Bees.